Good morning, everyone. I'm John Colmel, Chair of the Board of the NYPA Canals Corporation. I'm pinch hitting for the moment for Mike Balboni, as this is a regularly scheduled meeting of our cyber and physical security meeting. Joining us today, in addition to Michael momentarily, is Judge Nicandri, B. Gonzalez, as well as Dennis Trainer. As always, welcome other members of the NYPA staff who are participating with us this morning ahead of our board meeting in a couple hours. Said it's a regularly scheduled meeting, been duly noticed as required by the open meetings law. And with that, I call the meeting to order pursuant to Section B4 of the Cyber and Physical Security Committee Charter. As always, we'll open with the adoption of our agenda. Hopefully, we've all had a chance to review that. Unless there's any recommendations for amendments to the proposed agenda, I'd ask for a motion to approve what we have in front of us.
So moved.
Thank you, Judge. A second? B, thank you. I think that was a second from B. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried and the agenda has been adopted. As we typically do, we will start the meeting with an executive session, less plus or minus an hour. So with that, I'd ask for a motion to conduct an executive session pursuant to Public Officers Law, Section 105.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And a second there as well. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. We'll move to executive session and be back with you as soon as possible. Thank you.
So good morning. I'm Mike Balboni, and I have the privilege of chairing the Cyber Security and Physical Security Committee. And I'd like to ask for a motion to resume the meeting in open session.
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. There were no votes taken during the executive session. So we now would like to open up this part of the committee meeting for a discussion on cybersecurity updates. And for this, I'd like to bring to the fore Eric Meyer and Vic Castagna. Eric.
Good morning. Welcome, trustees, NYPA management, and members of the public. We're going to provide a very brief update of our cybersecurity program today. With me is Vic Costanza, who is our Deputy Chief Information Security Officer. We move on to the next slide, please. So again, 2021 was a busy year for us. We continue to evolve our program, but we also faced an unprecedented year in the cyber threat landscape. Starting off the year with the widely publicized SolarWinds vulnerability, a seemingly endless list of high-profile ransomware breaches, and ending the year with another high-profile zero-day vulnerability called Log4j, which we're continuing to manage to this point. And as we continue to evolve our program this year, we sought to take a very independent view of our capabilities and maturity to make sure that we're keeping pace with the evolving threat landscape. So to that end, we undertook a series of independent assessments. We conducted our first ever independent assessment of our overall program using the NIST cybersecurity framework that we're going to talk about on the next slide. We also conducted some very detailed assessments of our ransomware readiness and conducted some tabletop exercises to address our recovery capability. And then we're going to wrap up today. Vic is going to take us through our 2022 plan and how that's going to help keep us ahead of the threat landscape. So if we move to the next slide, and I really don't want to go into a lot of detail here, but we really want to introduce this concept because we're going to see this slide going forward because we're going to use it to both understand our overall maturity, measure our maturity against our target state, and inform our future investment decisions. And this is a midstream assessment on our current improvement program, which carries us through the end of 2023. So on this chart, you see three data series. The outermost green line is where our current funding program is going to take us. The blue line is where we currently are, and the orange data series is where is the industry average of other utilities like NYPA. And so you can see overall, we generally compare favorably to other utilities. The three spikes we see where we're about where the others are, those are actually being addressed by initiatives during 2022. So again, this was conducted at mid-year this year, and we're continuing to evolve. So the key point here is for us to introduce this concept. You will see this slide annually going forward as we continue to track and monitor our progress. And this is a very comprehensive framework. It's an industry standard. It covers over 100 different elements of an overall cybersecurity program across 5 key domains. So again, purpose here was just to introduce the framework and get you familiar with it. Going forward, we'll plot individual initiatives on here so you can see how they're actually impacting the maturity. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Vic Costanza.
Well, Eric, those 3 spikes, to use your words, do they create undue exposure or risk for us?
No, they do not. And we actually already have improvements in place for those. So if we were to do this assessment right now, you'd probably already see them moved out some.
Okay, so you're saying this is as of the point in time it was done. Yeah, it would be helpful if on an ongoing basis, this is a dialogue consistent with Adrian and her team in terms of just risk monitoring. If you can refresh this so that we're dealing with more real-time evaluation and we can better evaluate the progress that's being made to ensure that, to dumb it down, the blue line is appropriately progressing to the green line at a relevant pace. So if you can give us, ongoing reporting or figure out some way, I'll defer to Michael, whatever, just to refresh and update us that we as a board know that the investments being made, the plans in place are achieving the targeted progress and outcomes.
Absolutely. And the other point I'll make with this, as we get towards the end of our current funding program, we will be using this framework in conjunction with our risk appetite statement and dialogue with the EMC to, again, formulate what our next target statement is going to be or target position is going to look like and the investment that it's going to take to get there. So this will help inform our investment decisions going forward as well. So, and with that, I would like to turn it over to Vic Costanza to walk us through our 2022 plan. And I think you'll see some of the specific initiatives in the plan that address some of those items that we just spoke of here. So Adrian or Carly, if you move to the next slide, please.
Okay, thank you, Eric, and good morning, everyone. I'm Vic Costanza, Deputy Chief Information Security Officer. To address the evolving threat landscape and enhance our cyber collective defense capabilities and partnerships, cybersecurity has a number of capability improvement projects being implemented in 2022, as you see on the slide here. There are 5 major areas. These projects will help to focus on key learning opportunities from the recent assessments that Eric had previously mentioned in his presentation. Many of these items were already being executed as part of a phased approach and will be a continuation of our existing strategic plan. And those include identity and access management, which is a critical foundation for managing user, customer, and privileged access management, enhancing our 24/7 security event response capabilities, expanded network segmentation of our internal environment for enhanced containment of threats, and threat and vulnerability management tracking integration with our new IT service and asset management platform for greater efficiency of remediation. And as we approach the end of our 5-year cybersecurity roadmap this year, as shown in the caption in the upper right of the slide, we will be further developing and building upon these areas to help shape the updated cyber resilience roadmap for 2023 and beyond with our NYPA Vision 2030 journey. So we thank you, and let me know if you have any questions.
Just a general comment. We are in a period of intense activity as it relates to cyber threats, cyber attacks, and recently the federal government has gotten involved with trying to dictate and provide resources to get everybody kind of on the same page as it relates to what they call a zero trust capability. So all this really means that we're trying to determine who's trying to get into the networks. If they are in the networks, how are they behaving, and detect and mitigate and respond. And so the authority has taken on this mission, especially in light of the digitization that we've done. And so we're trying to make sure that all the different data and the, as Vic said, the privileged access to the networks are always monitored and always secure.
Vic, Eric, what concerns do you have relative to our ability to execute this plan in light of where the world finds itself? I don't know, what's supply chain exposed? What's intellectual capital issues do we have? Do you have? I mean, so from our perspective, so we've got a plan. It's end of January. Plans always look good 3 weeks into the year. In terms of your confidence, comfort level with our ability, your ability to execute this plan, what, if any, concerns or exposures do you think we have?
At this point, no real concerns around our ability to execute or deliver on these things. But again, as Michael said, the threat landscape is very active. And so who knows what sort of curveballs we may have to deal with throughout the year if we have another major vulnerability, if a huge uptick in cyber activity. There's always the risk of some distraction for us. But as of right now, given our current outlook on the threat landscape and our resources, I think we're well equipped to deliver.
Well, on that point, use the pandemic as a good or bad analogy. So we've got vaccinations that are effective against current variants, while everybody's trying to evaluate how to deal with the next variant or what the next variant will look like. How proactive is the industry able to be in terms of anticipating the next variant, cyber variant, and how anticipatory is this plan versus, well, this plan's only as good as what we know today, and what we encounter in 90 days renders our plan less effective. I mean, how adaptive and anticipatory, is this plan?
Well, we actually have, if we've got a couple slides in the appendix describing what is called the Lockheed Martin Cyber Kill Chain Framework. And that's really the framework that we use to think about how threats could evolve, and even things that we haven't seen to date, but we think about adversary capabilities and things that they might come after us with, and understand what we need to do to slow them down before they ever get to that last stage in the kill chain, which is a successful attack or breach. Carly, I don't know if we can pivot over to those slides or not here. You'll see 2 slides labeled.
Yep.
Right. So this is, again, for those that are unfamiliar, this is a framework that was pioneered by Lockheed Martin in the early 2000s, when the whole notion of these advanced cyber threats was just starting to emerge. And for those that are Six Sigma advocates, you'll recognize that this is a process that the bad guys use to successfully compromise a target. It starts off in the beginning with reconnaissance, where they're learning about the target environment, who may have access to the information, weaponizing things like malware that they throw at an organization. And ultimately, once they get inside of an organization, rapidly expanding, moving laterally, and ultimately getting to the end, which is what they call act on objectives, which at the origin of this framework was all about stealing intellectual property, defense secrets, and so forth. But increasingly today, act on objectives is much more financially driven with things like ransomware. But again, this is a framework that we use to think about how those threats could evolve and how we slow them down to be able to contain them before they get to the bad guys. So if you move to the next slide.
Wait, before you leave, just for the people watching this, the cyber kill chain is kind of a dramatic description of this, but the point is that if you break any element of that chain, then you stop the attack. And so what this does is it says to the entire enterprise that everybody has a role to play, whether it's your cyber defense architecture, whether it's monitoring the network, whether it's what emails you open. And NYPA regularly conducts phishing exercises to make sure people do not open the wrong emails. So everyone's got a part to play to stop this chain of events, which is how the name kill chain was applied.
Correct. And so if you flip to the next slide, it's an illustrative demonstration of actually how we think about it. So along that chain, we think about both preventive and detective and response capabilities that we have to have along that chain. And you'll see that we may have some overlapping capabilities. That's the notion of defense in depth, because we never want to be in the position of having the failure of a single control allow the adversary to move to the next step in the chain. And we continuously reevaluate these capabilities, because as we put capabilities in place, the bad guys are trying to figure out how to get around them. So it's a continual renewal. Again, this is a journey, not a destination. This work is never done. So as these capabilities become obsolete, we take them out and replace them with new capabilities. So, but this is how we think about the evolving threat landscape and keeping pace with those threats. So we can flip back to the prior slide, Carly. And I think that was the end of our materials for today, if we didn't have any other questions.
Yes, if there are no other questions from the trustees, I'd like to call on Larry Mallory, who is Senior Director, he's Director of Security and Crisis Management, and to present his update on physical security. Larry?
Thank you. Good morning. Next slide, please. I'm going to provide you just a brief update this morning on some security-related regulatory activities. First off, the Crescent and Vischer Ferry Emergency Action Plan exercise, which is a required FERC exercise. Later this morning, you'll hear more about the operational details of this exercise. However, I wanted to point out that at NYPA Security, we leverage this exercise to test our security response, threat escalation, and communication plans enterprise-wide. In addition to what you might consider typical physical security issues, we included injects on topics which can influence security, such as misinformation or disinformation campaigns, simulated activities, and threat alert notifications, which caused us to implement our response plans. Staying with the regulator theme, in September, NYPA was subject of a NERC Critical Infrastructure Protection Standards audit. This is a comprehensive audit that touches on a number of disciplines, not just physical security. The response was led by our Reliability Standards and Protections team, which is operations under technical compliance. Based on a lot of good work by a lot of dedicated employees, this audit resulted in 0 violations. 0 violations is not something you can ramp up to at audit time. That result speaks to the culture of compliance which NYPA has implemented and fostered. Finally, NYPA is working also with NERC in the Electric and Information Sharing Center to update the Physical Security Design Basis Threat document and develop an industry training on the application of that DBT. This is being done through our participation in NERC's Physical Security Advisory Group. And I look forward to updating you on the progress of that DBT at future meetings. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you for your time this morning.
No other questions from the trustees. Larry, thank you very much for your report. Now we'd like to adopt the consent agenda, which consists of the meeting minutes, and it is now before the committee for adoption. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. The next Cyber and Physical Security Committee will be held on Tuesday, July 26th, 2022. I now ask for a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second. I think I heard a second. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.